from your own words. Why don't you just give an overview of the port with highlights of one or two of the unique facets of the port that you see differentiates it from others?
Well, I will say one of the things that you'll find here at the Port of Milwaukee, we're 470 acres with both a commercial and a recreational mission. So we own property on, we call it Jones Island. Here locally, that's where most of our commercial activity takes place. But in terms of our commercial offerings, I would say one of the things that differentiates us, when people think about a Great Lakes port, they really think about, well, I can't bring my cargo there because, you know, Great Lakes ports are really only open for business 6 months out of the year. The old adage that, you know, Lake Michigan, Lake Ontario, and all 5 of the Great Lakes, you know, start freezing over in September really isn't quite the case. Milwaukee, unlike some other Great Lakes ports, maintains its business 24/7, 12 months out of the year. And that's a value proposition that we really offer to our customers, that when they're making a decision, especially in terms of a Great Lakes port that they choose, having that reliable service in January, February, and March is something that our customers really count on.
When you look at macro, when you look at the big picture, can you discuss what you see as the drivers for the port's growth?
Yeah, Milwaukee really has been known for a very long time as a salt port, right? People know that Wisconsin winters are fierce, and salt remains one of the most important commodities that we handle here each year. But the message that I've tried to impart, and I think it's been well received by both my staff, Milwaukee's political leadership, the state of Wisconsin's political leadership, our tenants, operators, and customers, is the need for diversification. Diversification to bring in new commodities and look to the future of what this facility is going to be 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. And I think one of the drivers, and this isn't going to be anything new to people in the port world, but the need for infrastructure reinvestment. You know, Port of Milwaukee and its facilities really were created in terms of their current footprint with the opening of the St. Lawrence Seaway in 1959. So when I look at a lot of our capital assets and port infrastructure, some of these are decades old. And one of the things that we've accomplished this year is moving forward with our new capital asset renewal plan. We call it our CARP. And we were excited to see that recently accepted by Milwaukee's political leadership. We anticipate that this tool is going to be the plan, the process, and the strategic funding roadmap for the port and our tenants, our operators, and our customers to modernize our facility really for its continued use over the next generations.
Can you put in perspective for us the economic impact that Port of Milwaukee delivers to your region, to your state?
Absolutely. So we were lucky. In August of 2018, we were part of a commission that actually specifically addressed that question. What is the overall economic impact of the Port of Milwaukee? And here we define our sort of regional footprint as the entirety of Wisconsin, including parts of Minnesota, Iowa, the Dakotas, and certainly northern Illinois, north of greater Chicago. And the overall economic footprint that this institution brings is at minimum $100 million per year in broader economic impact. So the numbers are pretty significant. You know, when we look at the jobs that Port of Milwaukee alone provides, that's almost 1,300 jobs per year in the state of Wisconsin alone that depend on our ongoing commercial activity. You know, that leads to millions and millions and millions of dollars of regional purchasing, and to be precise, probably 24, almost $25 million in regional purchasing takes place because of our commercial activity. So there's a broad-based economic impact because of what we do here.
but let's just focus on 2019. How was your year?
2019 was the best year that the Port of Milwaukee's had in a decade. One of the commodities that we have handled prior to my arrival at Port Director historically was coal. And that has gone away. That desire, that industry need in the state of Wisconsin for coal has gone away. So we were able to see significant utilization of new commodities. Again, I spoke to the desire for commodity diversification, looking to the new future of the port. Some of those traditional commodities like salt were really strong in 2019. A lot of those bulk commodities like cement, like limestone have been really great. Despite the international tariff environment, we were able to maintain robust European imports of steel and other break bulk cargoes. And certainly I've been thrilled to see our liquid bulk sector come online in recent years. Over the last 5 years, the port and our partner, U.S. Venture U.S. Oil, has invested millions of dollars to completely refurbish our liquid bulk terminal, and that has come online over the last 2 years, and we saw some strong performance out of them in 2019.
Now, you talked about the liquid bulk facility as one investment, but can you give us an overview of how Port of Milwaukee has been investing?
Significantly, and I'm proud to highlight a couple projects. My team here, one of the things that I quickly realized when I became port director was just how incredibly dedicated and passionate the staff is here. And because of that work, we have been very, very quickly able to bring in significant state and federal funding with some of the modernization projects that we've focused on. Port of Milwaukee has direct connection to Canadian Pacific and Union Pacific railways, and in order to maintain those connections, the port owns and operates 15 miles of its own rail here at the port on Jones Island. And with state of Wisconsin funding, almost to the tune of $4 million, we have been able to fully refurbish all of the rail crossings that allow the port and its customers to have that ship-to-rail connection to both CP and UP. And that project has been ongoing for about a year now and is about 90% done with full completion anticipated by July 21. Earlier this year, we've also seen really some amazing announcements come forward. We announced that we were one of the first recipients in the first round of funding for U.S. DOT's Port Infrastructure Development Program. And the U.S. DOT is investing $16 million in our new agricultural export facility, which is going to bring in dry distillers goods with solubles, grain, soy, and corn, and other Wisconsin-grown agribusiness to the port via truck and rail for export via handy-sized vessels through the seaway system, bringing in a U.S.-made, U.S.-operated agricultural export facility to the tune of $31 million is certainly the largest one-time investment in the port's history since, honestly, probably the early 1960s. And I will add one other element, and the exciting potential of cruise activity on the Great Lakes has really blossomed in the last couple of years. And 2019 was the first year that the Port of Milwaukee established its turnaround service here, and we were thrilled to see that Viking Cruise Lines, which is entering the Great Lakes market and the Mississippi River market in April of 2022, has selected the Port of Milwaukee for its turnaround service and its home port service for its new cruise ship for the Great Lakes, which is currently being built in Norway. So in addition to our commercial activity, we've also been able to partner with companies of international renown like Viking to expand our cruise service offerings in the years ahead.
Is there a technology that you look at that you can point to that has helped more than others to help to enable that process more efficiently and cost effectively?
in terms of revolutionizing international access to the Great Lakes, the U.S. and Canadian governments have spent hundreds of millions of dollars to refurbish the seaway locks. And they recently deployed a technology called hands-free mooring. And hands-free mooring at each of the locks, which basically creates an automated system in which human interventions to secure the vessel against the lock wall are no longer necessary. So the sometimes costly additions and enhancements that vessels coming into the Great Lakes system have been required to have in order to go through the locks are no longer required. So one of the things that we are looking forward with the advent of all of this lock modernization is the thousands of handy-size and Seaway Max vessels that have never actively come into the Great Lakes market before because they were scared. Because of this investment by the U.S. and Canadian governments, we are seeing, really that opens up the fleet of international vessels that are handy-size that might be looking to do business in the Great Lakes for the first time in decades.
Can you give an overview of how COVID-19 has impacted your port?
Absolutely. So I'll talk. I want to talk about two things. One, the economics of it, but also the human side of it. And I have to give credit to the incredible team of tenants, customers, and staff that I'm fortunate to lead here at the Port of Milwaukee. We implemented what I call an operational shift model of service, really trying to limit the amount of redundancy in human interactions with our operations crews, with our longshoremen, other people that actually handle freight and cargo here at the port. And it sort of became more of an at-call model, as opposed to just sort of having people here 8 to 5, 9 to 5, 12-hour shifts, whatever that might be, looking to ways that we can protect the health and safety of the employee while maintaining that same level of customer service that people look to Milwaukee for. And we were able to sustain that under our operational shift model. And I give full credit to the men and women that work here that were willing to, especially during the times when in the early COVID, when PPE wasn't widely available to our industry, and people were still out there working as hard as they could to steadily move freight and keep the economy going. And which begets the sort of second point I wanted to make, which is economic in nature. One thing that has surprised us is you're hearing a lot about ports that have struggled because of the economic downturn. And while I'm still cautious about what the economy will do in 2021 and 2022, thus far in 2020, our tonnage is basically equal to what it was this time in 2019. We have seen no economic downturn in our productivity or the amount of cargo that we are handling right now at the port.
Coming out the other side, do you see an area or two where you might emerge stronger when we return to quote-unquote normal?
I think there's been two conversations that have happened this year. One is definitely about safety and health because of the pandemic. And I think seafarers, dock workers, we are having a conversation about how do we honor these and protect these essential workers that are the backbone of our economy. And often I think seafarers, dock workers, these are people that are critical to the international supply chain that are often ignored or not understood as part of the broader public conversation. And I think that's going to be one of the legacies, is acknowledging who is the important players at every level of the transportation and logistics supply chain in our ports. I think there's another conversation that we know we've had this year as a society, which is about race-based discrimination and inclusion and diversity. And I think that's going to be another important lesson. I've long been of the bias in the years that I've worked on the Great Lakes that the maritime industry is one that is known, right or wrong, as an industry that's made basically up by 60-year-old straight white guys. And one of the things that we are seeing as part of a broader conversation in our society about equity and inclusion is how do we create spaces in our ports, in the transportation and maritime fields for people of color, for LGBT people, for women, for any person of any background, socioeconomic, racial, religious, gender or sexual orientation that wants to make a difference in our field. And I think that's going to be another lasting and important conversation that we've had this year that has the potential to really drive our industry forward in the generations ahead.